Right now, I mean, if you think about the most important battleground for the future of artificial intelligence, you probably picture Silicon Valley,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Or maybe like some shiny corporate campus in Seattle or a secretive lab somewhere in Europe.
Exactly. But it's actually none of those. It is on a 4,000-acre patch of dirt in the Philippines.
Yeah, which is just a staggering amount of space when you actually visualize it.
It really is. To put that into perspective for you, if you picture 2,000 football fields just stitched together side by side, you are looking at the footprint of this new facility. They are calling it a golden node.
Right, and they aren't just, pouring concrete for standard warehouses here.
No, not at all. They're building an industrial hub so incredibly advanced and honestly so strategically located that it really has the potential to physically shift the balance of global power.
It is a massive undertaking. I mean, it's basically the physical manifestation of a much larger global strategy. We're looking at a project that sits right at this crazy collision point of artificial intelligence, critical minerals, and frankly, some very intense geopolitical rivalry.
Which is exactly why we need to dive into this today. This is all happening under the umbrella of a massive global initiative.
Right, and we've been going through a huge stack of sources on this.
Yeah, we have everything from official U.S. State Department declarations and Philippine government plans from the BCDA to financial analyses from Avasant and Grant Thornton. Plus, we've got local Philippine news reports, environmental columns, and activist statements.
There is just a massive story hiding in plain sight here.
There really is. Okay, let's unpack this. We need to figure out what this initiative actually is, what it means for the global economy, and, what happens to a developing nation when it suddenly becomes the focal point for the world's most advanced technology.
Right, so the overarching framework driving all of this is something called Pax Silica.
Pax Silica? I mean, just the name itself is pretty loaded, really.
No, totally. The name actually tells you everything you need to know about the ambition behind it. So Pax draws directly from Latin.
Like the Pax Romana.
Exactly. Think of the Pax Romana or the Pax Britannica. These were historical periods of relative peace and stability, but they were managed by a dominant empire.
Right, they were peaceful because one empire had all the control.
Exactly. And then you have silica, which of course refers to the foundational compound that we refine into silicon.
And silicon is the absolute bedrock element for computer chips. So you put those two together, and it sounds like they're essentially drafting a blueprint for a digital empire of chips.
Yeah, a sort of tech piece managed by a coalition of allied nations. That's the structural concept anyway.
So if we define it formally, based on the government documents, what exactly is this?
Well, Pax Silica is an economic security framework. It was launched back in December 2025 by the U.S. State Department, spearheaded by Jacob Hellberg.
And it's not just the U.S., right?
No, it's a coalition of over 24 member countries. And the explicit goal that they put on paper is to build a secure, resilient, and trusted global supply chain for 3 specific things.
Artificial intelligence, advanced semiconductors, and critical minerals.
Right. And whenever you read government documents that use phrases like secure and resilient supply chain, you always kind of have to read between the lines.
Oh, absolutely. In this context, building a resilient supply chain really just means bypassing a single country monopoly.
Yeah, it's implicitly targeting China's current dominance in the processing of critical minerals and legacy chip manufacturing.
Because the reality of the last decade is that the global tech industry realized just how vulnerable it was to these choke points.
Exactly. I mean, if one nation controls the processing of the materials you need or the manufacturing of the components you rely on, they just hold immense leverage over everyone else.
So Pax Silica is basically the U.S. and its allies attempting to create a completely parallel ecosystem.
That's the goal. That way, these 24 allied nations aren't overly reliant on a potentially adversarial source for the tech that's basically going to run the next century.
Which brings us right back to that 4,000-acre patch of dirt.
Right.
Because in April 2026, the Philippines officially joined the Pax Silica coalition.
Yeah.
And their contribution, or their reward, depending on how you look at it, is the construction of this golden node.
Geographically, this hub is situated in New Clark City, which is in the province of Tarlac.
And looking at the map, that's a very specific choice.
It is highly strategic. It places the nodes squarely within the Luzon Economic Corridor, which is an area that is already a massive focus for both U.S. and Japanese infrastructure investment.
So it's a purpose-built platform designed specifically to host an AI-native ecosystem.
Exactly. But a platform of that scale, I mean, Again, 2,000 football fields of high-tech infrastructure. That requires just staggering amounts of capital.
Yeah, you don't just clear that much land and lay down that much fiber optic cable without massive financial incentives and a clear expectation of a return on investment.
Right, which naturally leads us to look at the actual mechanics of this deal. Like, what exactly do the Philippines and the global partners really get out of this?
So for the Philippines, according to the economics reports, the potential upside is just a monumental leap up the technological food chain.
Yeah, to understand how big of a shift this is, you really have to look at where their economy sits right now.
Right.
For decades, the Philippines has been a highly successful global hub for what's called IT-BPM.
Information technology and business process management.
Exactly. They are essentially the global capital for business process outsourcing, call centers, back-end IT support, that sort of thing.
And they are also a major player in back-end semiconductor assembly and testing.
Yeah, and reading through the trade data from our sources, that back-end work is not a small industry by any means.
No. Electronic products consistently make up over half of the country's total merchandise exports. We are talking around $39.1 billion generated just from that back-end work.
It's a massive revenue driver for them, but the key word there really is back-end.
Right, because in the semiconductor world, back-end work generally just means taking a chip that was engineered and fabricated somewhere else entirely and simply putting it into its protective plastic casing.
Yeah, you solder the pins, you test it to make sure it works, and you ship it out. It's totally necessary work, but it's very low on the value chain.
And Pax Silica is designed to push the country aggressively into the high-value territory instead.
Exactly. The initiative's goal is to transition the Philippines from that basic assembly into advanced semiconductor packaging.
Let's actually pause on that for a second because advanced packaging sounds like a logistics or a shipping term.
Right, like Amazon boxes or something.
Yeah, exactly. But in the chip world, it's actually the absolute cutting edge of AI hardware.
It really is. Instead of just putting a plastic cover on a single chip, advanced packaging involves stacking multiple specialized microscopic chips, which they call chiplets, together in these crazy three-dimensional architectures.
Right. It's incredibly complex engineering. It requires highly sophisticated clean rooms and specialized robotics.
And along with that advanced packaging, the Golden Node is slated to host massive AI compute facilities, plus localized processing plants for critical minerals like copper and nickel.
So when you bundle all of that together, the financial projections are just staggering.
They really are. The Avasant report and the government forecasts both suggest potential foreign direct investment reaching anywhere from $40 to $70 billion.
40 to 70 billion. And the job creation estimates attached to those billions are equally massive.
Yeah. The plans project the creation of about 180,000 to 190,000 direct, high-skilled jobs.
Plus another 800,000 indirect jobs created in the surrounding economy just to support the hub itself.
And what's fascinating here is the intention behind those direct jobs. The goal is to hire engineers, data scientists, and advanced robotics technicians locally.
This whole endeavor is just a textbook example of friendshoring, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's a total departure from the globalization model of the 90s and 2000s.
Right, back when multinational companies would just hunt for the absolute cheapest labor anywhere on the planet, regardless of that country's political alignment.
Exactly. Friendshoring is a strategic move to lock the supply chain entirely within allied borders. And the U.S. considers this so vital for national security that they are actually backing it up with a $250 million Pax Silica fund.
Wow.
Yeah, specifically to grease the wheels for infrastructure and mineral projects across these partner nations.
Okay, but looking at the critiques coming from local Philippine economists and our sources, there is a major skeptical undertone here.
Oh, definitely. There's a lot of pushback.
Because setting up an advanced factory in a developing country doesn't just automatically mean the local population gets those advanced jobs.
No, it doesn't.
So are there actual guarantees that these 190,000 engineering roles won't just be filled by foreign talent that gets flown in specifically for the project?
And that is a critical vulnerability in the whole plan. Local analysts point directly to what happened recently with foreign investments in Indonesia's mineral processing plants.
Right. Indonesia is the perfect parallel here.
It really is. The critique there was that a massive amount of capital flowed into the country, but the local workforce was largely relegated to low-tier manual labor.
Like driving the dump trucks, pouring the concrete, doing perimeter security.
Exactly. While the foreign companies just brought in their own engineers and their own management teams to take all the high-paying roles.
So if the Philippines doesn't enforce strict technology transfer agreements, legal requirements that these companies actually have to train and hire local talent for the engineering roles, this incredible golden node could just end up functioning like an isolated tech colony.
Right, and the economic benefit for the everyday citizen would be severely capped. Now, the BCDA, which is the Bases Conversion and Development Authority managing the zone, they have publicly stated that these will be high-value tech jobs for Filipinos.
But, promising it in a press release and actually embedding it into the structural framework of the legal contracts are two very different things.
Completely different things. And honestly, the quality of the jobs is really only the first layer of concern here.
Yeah, because when you look at the physical mechanics of actually running a 4,000-acre AI native city, the resource requirements are just astronomical.
This isn't just about building office parks or nice corporate campuses. This is about powering the physical infrastructure of the virtual world.
Right. When we talk about next-generation AI data centers, we have to look at the power grid.
And the energy demands of artificial intelligence are just orders of magnitude higher than traditional cloud computing.
Yeah, because when an AI model is training, or even when it's just generating an image or a complex piece of code, the graphics processing units, the GPUs, they're running at maximum capacity.
And the estimates from our sources suggest that this golden node is going to require a base load of power somewhere between 1 to 4 gigawatts.
A gigawatt is such a difficult number to conceptualize for most people.
It's huge.
Essentially, a single gigawatt is roughly the total capacity of a massive nuclear reactor, where it's about 3 million solar panels.
So running 1 to 4 gigawatts is basically like running several massive aluminum smelters 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And we really have to look at the current reality of the Philippine power grid because it is already operating on a knife's edge.
Yeah, it's highly strained. The country frequently experiences rotating brownouts, especially during the dry season when peak demand just surges.
So dropping a 4-gigawatt load onto a grid that is already struggling, that just creates an immediate crisis of allocation.
Definitely. And there are severe, well-documented concerns about how this will impact regular citizens. Historically, massive industrial facilities negotiate these bulk subsidized power rates to set up shop in a country.
Right, so if the grid has to suddenly expand its capacity just to accommodate the golden node, the actual cost of building those new power plants and upgrading the transmission lines could just be passed down to everyday households.
Yeah, in the form of massive power price hikes.
Then there is the environmental reality of generating that power in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
AI data centers require what's known as baseload power. They need a constant, completely uninterrupted flow of electricity.
You can't just have the servers turn off when the wind stops blowing or the sun goes down.
Exactly. So this raises a major question that the sources bring up. To meet that massive, uninterrupted demand, will the Philippines be forced to delay its transition to clean energy?
It's a very real fear. Will they have to build more coal plants or liquid natural gas plants just to keep the AI servers humming?
Which creates a direct, massive conflict with their own climate goals.
It does. And the resource consumption doesn't even stop at electricity.
Oh, right. The cooling systems.
Yeah, all of those servers running at maximum capacity generate an immense amount of physical heat. And to keep those supercomputers from literally melting down, these facilities rely on evaporative cooling systems.
And those systems just drink water at an astonishing rate. We are talking between 1 to 5 million gallons of water daily for a hub of this size. 5 million gallons a day, in a region that is already highly vulnerable to droughts, particularly with the intensifying El Nino weather patterns.
Yeah, that kind of water usage is a massive point of friction.
And reading through the local reports, this has sparked some intense pushback on the ground. Farmers in central Luzon, indigenous Aida groups, and coalitions like the SWS War Network, they're actively organizing against this.
Right, they're looking at their local water tables, and they are genuinely fearing agricultural displacement. They're worried about the loss of food security just to cool down foreign servers.
Now, to be objective, the BCDA has offered counter-arguments to these concerns in their briefings.
They have. They maintain that the facility will absolutely not drain community groundwater.
Right, their engineering plan includes building large-scale rain catchment systems and impounding dams so they can source the water independently.
They've also stated that the land being developed is already titled to the government, so they're asserting it is not ancestral domain land.
And they estimate that less than 10% of local farmers will be displaced, arguing that the project is going to generate thousands of alternative livelihoods for the region anyway.
It's the classic friction of rapid industrialization. You have this incredible macroeconomic promise just colliding head-on with the microeconomic reality of the people actually living on the land.
But even if we assume, that the engineering solutions for the power and the water work out perfectly, there is a third major risk outlined in the financial briefings.
Yeah, the danger of giving away the farm without guaranteeing the harvest.
Exactly. This really comes down to value realization and tax policy. Because to convince these massive multinational tech giants to bypass cheaper options and actually set up shop in the Golden Node, the Philippine government has to offer some incredibly aggressive fiscal incentives.
They do. They are utilizing a piece of legislation called the Create More Act.
Right.
And this act allows the government to significantly lower corporate income taxes and offer various duty exemptions. On top of that, the BCDA is offering a 2-year lease grace period.
Which essentially means these companies can operate rent-free on the land for the first 24 months.
Exactly.
So if a government is providing the land rent-free, offering massive tax cuts, and potentially straining its own power grid, the immediate question is, how does the host country actually make money off this?
And that is where a very specific mechanism called the QDMTT comes into play.
Okay, the QDMTT. Break that down for us.
So it stands for the Qualified Domestic Minimum Top-Up Tax. It is a brilliant, albeit pretty complex, piece of global financial policy.
Yeah, tax policy usually is.
So recently, over 140 countries around the world agreed to a global minimum corporate tax rate of 15%. The way it works is, if a multinational company operates in a country that gives them so many tax breaks that their effective tax rate drops to, let's say, 5%,
right,
their home country is legally allowed to just top up the tax and collect that remaining 10% themselves.
Oh, wow. So if a U.S. tech giant gets a total sweetheart tax deal in the Philippines and pays almost nothing locally, the U.S. government would just tax them the difference back home anyway.
Correct. The QDMTT is basically the Philippines' defensive countermeasure to that international rule.
I see.
It basically says, look, if this company is going to be forced to pay a 15% minimum tax anyway, we are going to be the ones to collect it.
Right, so it acts as a safety net.
Yeah.
It ensures that even with all the crazy incentives from the Create More Act, the Philippines still captures a guaranteed baseline of tax revenue from these tech giants.
Yeah, preventing that money from just flying back into foreign jurisdictions.
It's really a fascinating look at the financial chess match happening behind the scenes. But, money isn't the only thing on the board here.
No, not at all. There is a deeply political layer to this, specifically regarding national sovereignty.
Yeah, the reporting highlights some really intense political friction that happened during the initial negotiations, specifically over the concept of diplomatic immunity.
According to several of our sources, during the early stages of planning, U.S. representatives allegedly requested that the Golden Node operate under a framework where its personnel would be granted diplomatic immunity.
Meaning they wouldn't be subject to local laws.
Right, effectively placing the entire zone under U.S. legal jurisdiction.
That is just an astonishing ask. I mean, it's essentially requesting a mini-state within a state.
It really is. Now, the BCDA firmly rejected that request. They drew a very hard line, insisting that the project will remain entirely subject to Philippine law and jurisdiction.
Which makes sense. But the fact that the request was even made in the first place really inflamed local critics.
Oh, yeah. It highlights the underlying reality of the whole Pax Silica initiative. Hosting a U.S.-led tech hub inherently turns the host country into a strategic proxy.
Yeah, because if you host the critical AI infrastructure and the supply chain for one superpower, you automatically draw the scrutiny and potentially the hostility of the competing superpower.
Exactly. In the context of the ongoing tech war between the U.S. and China, the Golden Node just becomes a very, very visible target on the geopolitical map.
Which kind of forces us to step back and look at the whole picture here.
Right.
You have the risk of straining the national power grid, the threat of water depletion, this incredibly complex financial balancing act with the tax incentives, and the geopolitical heat of hosting a U.S. coalition node.
The risks are profound. They really are.
So why do it? Why is the Philippine government so eager to take on all of this friction? What leverage do they actually hold that makes them the chosen site for all of this?
To understand the why, you really have to look beneath the surface of the land, literally beneath the dirt. It all comes down to geology. The Philippines is basically sitting on a geological jackpot. They're currently the fifth most mineralized country on the planet.
Wow, fifth in the world.
Yeah. Estimates suggest there's around $1 trillion in untapped critical minerals just sitting beneath their soil right now.
$1 trillion.
We're talking massive, massive deposits of nickel, copper, gold, and cobalt.
And here's where the mechanics of the global supply chain get really interesting.
Yeah.
Because you cannot build AI data centers or advanced semiconductor fabs or the clean energy batteries required to power them without staggering amounts of nickel and copper.
You absolutely need them.
And for a long time, the global market relied really heavily on Indonesia for raw nickel. But in 2020, Indonesia made this massive structural change to their economy.
They enacted a strict ban on the export of raw nickel ore.
Right, because Indonesia realized they were just digging up dirt and selling it cheap, while other countries processed it and made all the actual profit.
Exactly. By banning the export of raw ore, they basically forced foreign companies to come into Indonesia and build the multi-billion-dollar processing plants locally if they wanted access to that nickel.
And when Indonesia shut off the tap of raw ore, the global market just scrambled. And overnight, the Philippines suddenly became the world's largest exporter of raw nickel ore.
Which brings us right back to Pax Silica. The U.S. and its allies desperately need those exact minerals to fuel the AI revolution.
Right.
But currently, a massive percentage of global mineral processing, taking that raw dirt and turning it into usable battery-grade material, that happens in China.
So the core mission of Pax Silica is to bypass that exact bottleneck.
Yes. The coalition wants to mine the minerals in the Philippines and process them in the Philippines, keeping the entire life cycle of the materials within Allied territory.
And from the perspective of the Marcos administration, this aligns perfectly with their national AI strategy roadmap.
It really does. The government is looking at that Indonesian model and realizing they don't want to just export raw dirt anymore either.
Right. They want to capture that massive value add that comes from processing it locally and turning it into advanced technology.
And New Clark City makes it incredibly easy for the coalition to say yes. It isn't just some empty field waiting to be paved over.
No, it was intentionally designed years ago to be a disaster-resilient, smart city.
Exactly. It has the zoning, the foundational infrastructure, the direct transportation links to the Luzon Economic Corridor. It's all already mapped out.
It is basically a turnkey canvas for a mega project like this.
It is the perfect convergence of opportunity. The U.S. desperately needs a secure supply chain, and the Philippines has the minerals, the physical location, and the deep desire to upgrade its economy.
But if you look at the mechanics of this relationship, you really have to wonder who actually holds the ultimate leverage here.
That is the big question.
Right, because if the Philippines is sitting on $1 trillion in critical minerals, and a coalition of wealthy nations is just desperate to access those minerals outside of China's sphere of influence, doesn't the host nation kind of hold all the cards?
You would think so.
Instead of just accepting whatever tax frameworks and environmental strains come with the deal, aren't they in a position to demand incredibly favorable terms, to demand absolute ironclad technology transfer?
And that is the exact debate happening among local economists right now. It's really a question of mindset.
How so?
Well, does the leadership fully recognize the leverage they hold in this new geopolitical reality? Or are they still operating from an older paradigm, where developing nations simply feel grateful for any foreign investment that happens to come their way?
It's a fascinating tension. So synthesizing everything we've looked at today across all these sources, we have the sheer scale of this 4,000-acre golden node, the promise of billions in investment in high-tech jobs.
Right.
But also the incredible thirst for gigawatts of power and millions of gallons of water, all wrapped in a geopolitical tightrope. So what does this all mean? What is the ultimate takeaway here?
Well, for developing nations like the Philippines, the Pax Silica initiative represents a profound dual reality.
Yeah.
On one hand, it is a genuinely transformative leap forward. It represents a concrete, funded pathway to modernize their economy, move beyond basic back-end assembly, and secure a highly lucrative position in the global tech value chain.
It is quite literally a seat at the table of the future economy.
It really is. But on the other hand, the flip side is that it is a high-stakes gamble.
A massive gamble.
It places immense immediate pressure on their environmental stability, it threatens the energy and water security of everyday citizens, and it deeply entangles the nation in a superpower tug-of-war.
It is the ultimate tightrope walk between economic progress and domestic preservation.
Exactly.
Which leaves you with one final thought to mull over. We started by talking about the sheer physical scale of this project.
Yeah.
2,000 football fields of infrastructure.
Right.
Because the cloud isn't just floating in the sky, it lives on the ground. It requires vast amounts of land, copper, water, and electricity.
Yeah, it's very...
So if artificial intelligence is truly the infrastructure of the human future, and building it requires exhausting local water tables, burning through struggling power grids, and digging up local land, are we simply sacrificing the physical environment of the developing world just to build the virtual environment of the future?
It's a heavy question.
Something to think about. Thanks for exploring the depths of this deep dive with us today, and we'll see you next time.